Story 1. The Whispering Crypt. I first heard about the Hawthorne Crypt from an old Reddit thread. Buried deep in the woods of Massachusetts, untouched for nearly 2 centuries. No trail markers, no signs. Just a cold stone tomb surrounded by wild vines and dead silence. Local legends said the Hawthorne family died mysteriously in 1847. Every single member, wiped out in a single night. Their bodies were buried in a massive underground crypt and sealed forever. Or so they thought. I was a skeptic. I ran a small YouTube channel called Haunt Proof, a ghost debunking show. Paranormal myths? I thrived on busting them. So when a fan dared me to spend a night outside the crypt, I accepted without hesitation. Armed with a flashlight, camera, and an EMF reader, I trekked into the woods. No path, just instinct and GPS coordinates shared by a hiker who heard whispers. It took me 4 hours to find it. There it stood, the crypt. Half buried in moss, the stone was cracked. Weather-worn, a single rusted door sealed the entrance. Carved above it, Hawthorne, may silence keep you. But it didn't. As night fell, the forest changed. Birds stopped chirping. Wind disappeared. The trees stood still. I set up my gear, hit record, sat by the crypt's cold entrance. That's when I heard it. Whispers, faint at first. Just a trick of the wind, I thought. But then, they grew clearer. Not just sounds, words, dozens of voices, all whispering the same line. He's here. He's here. He's here. I laughed it off, probably wind bouncing off the trees. But the EMF reader spiked, and the batteries in my flashlight, fully charged, drained to 0 in seconds. I decided to try the crypt door. It wasn't locked. The heavy metal creaked as I pulled it open. The smell hit me first. Mold, rot, old death. My camera flickered. The screen turned blue for a second, then black. Inside, stone steps descended into pitch black. I hesitated, but curiosity is a stronger force than fear. I stepped in. The air grew colder with every step. At the bottom, a long hallway lined with stone coffins. Dust thick as snow. Spider webs across every corner. I counted 6 coffins, each engraved with a name and date. The last one caught my attention. Elias Hawthorne died unknown. The lid was cracked open. Suddenly my ears rang, a piercing high-pitched tone like pressure in an airplane cabin. Then, a voice, directly behind me, a whisper. You shouldn't have come. I spun around. No one. But my camera, still recording, caught it. A shadow. Tall, thin, standing at the top of the stairs for just a second before vanishing. I ran up, but when I reached the surface, the forest was gone. The forest wasn't where I left it. The trees were older, taller. The trail, gone. Even the air felt different. I pulled out my phone, no signal. The date, August 14th, 1847. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Then I heard it. Horses, shouting, dogs barking. A group of townsfolk rushed through the woods, torches in hand. They spotted me, their eyes wide with fear. It's him, one shouted. The cursed boy. The one who opened it. I ran, I stumbled for hours, no direction, just panic. Eventually I found an old cabin, boarded up windows, abandoned. Inside a journal, pages yellowed, fragile. The final entry read, "We sealed the crypt." But he returned, a man from the future. He speaks like us but carries strange tools. He is the key. The door must never open again. It was dated August 14, 1847. That night the whispers came again. But this time, they weren't angry. They were pleading. We are trapped, bound, break the cycle. Let us rest, take our place. I understood. Someone had to stay, so the others could go. That was the price. I stood at the crypt one last time, and I said yes. As I stepped into the darkness, a gust of wind blew past me. Dozens of shadowy figures rushing into the forest, free at last. I closed the crypt door behind me. The whispers faded. Silence. Then, a light. Epilogue, spoken in soft, haunting tone. A week later, A man in torn clothes wandered into a diner 50 miles away. He said his name was Elias Hawthorne. He claimed to be from 1847, and when someone showed him a YouTube video titled The Whispering Crypt, final recording, he smiled and whispered he kept his promise. Story 2. The Girl in the Blue Dress. It started like any normal weekend. I was visiting my cousin in Sacramento. She's always been into weird things. Haunted places, midnight ghost tours, and stuff like that. So when she said we should check out Sycamore Hill Cemetery, I didn't think much of it. She told me about a statue hidden in the far end of the cemetery. A little girl, about 8 years old, carved from stone, wearing a blue dress. People left toys, flowers, even candy around her feet. They said her name was Emily, and if you left her a gift, she'd come visit you in your dreams. If you didn't, she'd come anyway. We looked her up. There were dozens of posts going back years. Woke up with muddy footprints in my hallway. Saw her outside my bedroom window, and I live on the 10th floor. Don't joke about Emily, she hears you. There was even a photo, black and white. The statue was beautiful but eerie, eyes slightly too wide, smile slightly too sad. My cousin said the last person who mocked the statue disappeared, vanished, left behind only their shoes, perfectly placed in front of Emily. I laughed it off, urban legends, probably made up by goth kids for clout. I wish I still believed that. It was just after 11 p.m. when we arrived at the cemetery. I remember the cold, the unnatural kind. The moment we stepped past the iron gates, the wind died. Not a single sound, not even crickets. We walked through rows of ancient graves, and then there she was, Emily. The statue stood under a withered oak tree, her hands cupped together like she was waiting. At her feet, a pile of gifts, a cracked porcelain bunny, a melted lollipop, a faded birthday card. I stepped closer and whispered, "Creepy little girl. Who made this thing?" That's when my cousin slapped my arm. "Don't mock her." She pulled a tiny teddy bear from her backpack and placed it in Emily's hands. I had nothing, so I walked away. That night, I woke up gasping. My room was cold and wet. I turned on the light and saw the muddy footprints leading from my closet to the foot of my bed, small, bare, child-sized. I heard laughter. I spun around. No one. But there on my desk was the teddy bear my cousin had left at the cemetery. Except it was burned. The face melted, one button eye dangling by a thread. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Over the next few days, things escalated. Lights flickered every night at 2:13 a.m. Whispers echoed from vents and drains. My dog refused to enter my room, always growling at the closet. I checked the EMF reader my cousin gave me for fun. It went haywire near Emily's teddy bear. I tried to throw it out. It came back. Twice. I tried to burn it. The flames turned blue and cold. That night, I dreamed again. I was back at the cemetery, but this time the statue was gone, and a little girl stood where it used to be. Same face, same dress, eyes black as voids. She smiled and said, "You forgot me." I began digging into Old Town records. Emily Hutchins, born 1918, died 1926. She was hit by a car just outside the cemetery gates while chasing her puppy. Her parents were wealthy and built a statue in her memory. But 3 years later, her father went mad, claiming Emily visited him every night, asking to come inside. He was found dead in the basement, drowned in mud. Since then, dozens of disappearances have occurred, all visitors, all after mocking the statue or refusing to leave gifts. I drove back to the cemetery alone. I brought flowers, candy, a handmade doll. I begged at her feet. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Please leave me alone." The wind picked up. The leaves rustled. The statue wept. Tears of blood. That night I had one final dream. Emily stood in my room, holding the doll. She looked at me, emotionless. "I forgive you," she said, "but not everyone gets forgiven." 3 days later, my cousin vanished. Her apartment door was locked from the inside. No sign of struggle except a single muddy footprint. And Emily's teddy bear, this time it was smiling. She hasn't been found, but every so often my phone lights up at exactly 2:13 a.m. No message, just static, and the faint sound of a child humming. Epilogue. They say if you leave her a gift, Emily will protect you. If you mock her, ignore her, or try to forget her, she'll remember, and she'll wait, because Emily never forgets. Story 3, The Last Live Stream, October 13th, 2022. Popular Twitch streamer Dylan Blake posted a poll asking where he should do his Halloween ghost hunting stream. The winner, St. Mary's Cemetery, Nevada. Abandoned, off limits, rumored to be cursed, perfect for clicks. He titled the stream, "Spending the Night in a Haunted Graveyard, Live." He arrived just before midnight, GoPro strapped to his chest, drone ready, night vision enabled. "Yo, what's up, chat? We're out here in the middle of nowhere," he said, grinning at 30,000 viewers. But the chat wasn't laughing. Viewers noticed something strange. A figure, pale, long-haired, standing behind a grave. Dylan turned around. No one there. The camera glitched. 10 minutes in, the stream froze. Screen went black for exactly 6 seconds. When it returned, Dylan looked off, his face pale, voice slower. He smiled at the camera and said, "This place is older than death." In the corner of the screen, something moved. A hand, crawling. The chat went wild. "Behind you! Dude, WTF was that? Is this part of the act?" It wasn't. Viewers reported strange phenomena. One saw their own name whispered through headphones. One said their screen turned to static and showed a grave with today's date. Some phones froze, wouldn't turn off. Then the screen showed Dylan again. He was sitting on a gravestone, holding the camera too close. "Do you know how it feels to be watched from below?" he whispered. "They see us. Through the wires. Through the stream." The feed cut. The next morning, fans thought it was a stunt. Viral marketing, ARG. But Dylan didn't post again. No tweet, no story, no upload. His Twitch channel was deleted. No trace. Police went to St. Mary's. They found his car outside the gate, and his drone, spinning slowly on the ground, still recording. The footage recovered from the drone was worse than anyone expected. At 2:13 a.m., Dylan is seen standing completely still, whispering to something unseen. Then the camera zooms on his face. His eyes are rolled back. His mouth moves, but in reverse. Audio reversed sounds like, "There's more beneath." It wants a signal. It follows those who watch. 2 days later, a clip from the stream was uploaded to Reddit. It hit 500,000 views overnight. By morning, 4 people had reported sleep paralysis. All described the same vision. A woman with shattered teeth and wires spilling from her eyes, whispering, "Say my name. Say it, love." One viewer went missing. Only clue, St. Mary's carved into her desk. A conspiracy emerged. Old blog posts and forums mentioned a streaming ritual, a digital seance that opens a gate if performed live, from sacred ground. Dylan may have activated it by accident or on purpose. But the real horror, the recording is still out there. Every time someone watches it, the signal spreads into routers, phones, dreams. It feeds. A private investigator uploaded the final recovered clip. It shows Dylan inside a grave, alive, screaming, dirt falling on his face from above. But the voice isn't his. It's a little girl, humming, singing, click the bell, click the bell, stay and stream in my little hell. Then the screen went black. Epilogue. You're part of it now. They say if you watch that stream, even just a clip, you're already marked. Some say they hear tapping from inside their walls. Some say their webcams turn on when they're alone. And some say Dylan still goes live, but only for those who are next. Story 3. The House by Gravestone Creek. After the divorce, Caroline Avery wanted a new beginning. She found it in rural Virginia, a beautiful two-story Victorian house, nestled between tall pines and near a shallow creek. Locals called it Gravestone Creek. She didn't ask why. From the start, things felt wrong. The floorboards creaked differently at night. Doors opened slowly, then slammed shut, even when no wind blew. Her daughter Lily said she heard whispers in the walls. Not just voices, but names. Names she didn't recognize. Caroline assumed it was stress, until Lily said, "The whisper lady says this isn't our house. She wants it back." Cleaning the attic, Caroline found an old hand-drawn map. Beneath the house, faint outlines of what looked like a forgotten cemetery. No tombstones remained, no markers, just their home, built right on top. She showed it to a neighbor. He went pale. "You didn't know? This whole ridge was moved in 1903. They paved over the graves, said the flood would carry 'em away anyway. Guess some stayed." That night, the dog barked nonstop. Caroline looked outside and saw muddy footprints leading up from the creek, straight to Lily's window. She ran upstairs. The window was open. Lily sat frozen on the floor, whispering, "She's in my bed. She says the earth is cold. She wants me to lie down." The next morning, Caroline searched the county records. In 1903, a flood washed through Gravestone Creek, displacing a graveyard. Several bodies were never recovered. One name appeared multiple times in newspapers: Martha Bell, age 10, drowned, then vanished. One article said, "Martha's grave was never found, but many say her spirit still seeks her home." In the hallway mirror, Caroline saw 3 figures behind her: a man with broken glasses, a woman with no eyes, and a little girl, soaking wet, holding a doll made of bones. When she turned, the hall was empty. That night, Lily's doll was missing. In its place, a wet, old-fashioned rag doll with twine around its neck. Caroline called a friend from Richmond, a historian. They brought ground-penetrating radar. Under the house, beneath the laundry room, were 9 burial plots, all still occupied. "You've built on a graveyard," the historian whispered. "That's why it's cold. That's why it whispers." Caroline decided to leave, pack their bags, booked a hotel. But Lily was missing. Caroline searched all night, finally following footprints to the creek. There Lily stood, waist deep in the black water, eyes closed, swaying, holding hands with someone no one else could see. "She says I can stay. If you take her place, she wants a mother again." Caroline screamed, rushed in, pulled Lily out. The girl cried, coughed, whispered, "She's angry now. She's really angry." Behind them, the water boiled. Bubbles rose, then burst, revealing a skull rising from the current. Caroline looked into its sockets and for a second saw herself. They fled the house, never looked back. But Caroline couldn't sleep. Every dream was filled with muddy hands and a lullaby in reverse. She returned one last time. alone, walked into the basement, sat where the radar said the mother's grave had been. She whispered, "Take me." Let her go. The walls shook. The ground opened. Epilogue, two graves. More Lily lives in Richmond now. She tells people her mom died in a car accident. But sometimes she dreams of Gravestone Creek. And when she does, she hears a voice. Faint, watery, familiar. Mommy's still here. Mommy never left. Mommy is part of the earth now. Because that house isn't empty. Not anymore. It has a mother again. Story 5. The Unmarked Grave. When my grandfather passed, he left me one thing in his will. A letter. Handwritten. Yellowed with age. Son, if you're reading this, go to Carter's Hill Cemetery. Find the old oak tree with the iron fence. Dig beneath the stone with no name. And whatever you do, don't lie. It made no sense. My grandfather was a church-going man, never spoke of curses or ghosts. But curiosity is a disease. Carter's Hill Cemetery was abandoned in 1962, overgrown, forgotten. The headstones crooked like broken teeth. I found the iron fence, the tree, the nameless stone. There was no name, no date, just smooth granite. I dug. Less than 3 feet down, I found a small wooden box, rotted from within. Inside, a child's shoe, a blood-stained ribbon, and a photograph, burned around the edges. The face was scratched out. That night, I woke to whispering, not outside, from under my bed. Words I couldn't understand. Not English, not even language. I looked beneath, nothing there. But when I stood up, I stepped into mud. Fresh, cold, smelling of earth and rot. I went to the town archives, looked up Carter's Hill. Only one entry about the unmarked grave. It was labeled Burial X 1951. Female. No ID, no ceremony. There was a note attached. Found in Avery Woods. Cause of death, unknown. Age, approximately 7th. Locals refused to name her. Whispers of a curse. I asked the clerk. He just stared at me. You shouldn't be digging up the past, son. Some things stay buried for a reason. It started with shadows. Corners of rooms growing darker than they should. Lights flickering only in my presence. And then, the girl. She stood in the corner of my room. Dirty dress, matted hair, no face, just a smooth, featureless surface, like the gravestone. Every time I looked, she was closer. I called my uncle, the only living relative who grew up in the town. He was silent on the phone, then whispered, "Your grandfather." He knew. They buried her because she wasn't like us. She saw things, knew things. They thought it was demonic, so they did something awful, and they made us lie about it. I asked what they did. He hung up. That night, the girl appeared at the foot of my bed. This time she had eyes, black, dripping like ink. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Instead, I heard it inside my head. Tell the truth. Say my name. Undo the lie. I didn't know her name. That was the curse. I returned to the cemetery with an old priest who'd once served the town. He was shaking the entire time. They swore me to silence. But I remember her. Her name was Clara Mayfield. She wasn't cursed. She was gifted. She warned them about the flood before it came. They didn't believe her. They blamed her for the dead. We prayed, spoke her name, and the wind stopped. For the first time in days, silence. I returned the shoe, the ribbon, the photo. I placed them beneath the stone. I carved her name with a chisel I brought. Clara Mayfield, 1944 to 1951. The ground shifted ever so slightly, and then I saw her, standing by the tree, smiling, With a face, she nodded and vanished into the wind. Epilogue, Truth Sets Free. I moved away not long after, but every now and then someone emails me. Strangers who find her grave and say they dreamt of her. They say she spoke to them, told them secrets they didn't know they needed, told them to stop lying to themselves. Clara was never the curse. The lie was. Story 6, The Church That Prayed to Nothing. I was a journalist for a small online horror site. Every Halloween, I visited obscure haunted places across the US for clicks, for content, for fun. Then one day, I got a letter, handwritten, no return address. If you want a real story, come to Milltown, Alabama. Find the chapel, but don't stay past sundown. They don't pray to God anymore. Milltown wasn't on any modern map, just dirt roads and rotting mailboxes. When I arrived, I saw no people, no stores, just a few homes, all boarded up. At the town center stood a wooden church, paint peeling, cross broken. On the door, a symbol carved deeply, a circle of thorns. Not Christian, not anything I recognized, but the door was unlocked. Inside, the church was silent. But as I stepped down the aisle, the pews creaked, as if people had just stood up. There was no dust, no cobwebs, just fresh footprints in the floorboards leading toward the altar. I reached the front. On the pulpit, a leather-bound book, not a Bible. Its cover was blank. Inside, names, hundreds of names, each one crossed out in red ink. At the bottom, one name untouched. E. Grayson. As the sun dipped, the atmosphere changed, the air thickened. Heavy, damp. Then, faint music, a hymn, off-key, warped, coming from the back room. I followed it. In a dusty choir room, rotting robes hung on pegs. And in the center, a photograph. 23 people standing in front of the church, smiling. Behind them, a man in robes holding a black book. I flipped the photo. The Last Congregation, October 31st, 1954. I found a tape recorder hidden in the pulpit. Surprisingly, it worked. I pressed play. A voice echoed, deep, almost hollow. Brothers and sisters, tonight we give ourselves to the one beneath, not to be saved, but to be remembered. Then screams, dozens, cut short by a single horrible wet sound, and silence. The last ray of light disappeared, and the church changed. The air turned cold. The wooden walls pulsed, like breathing. The pews groaned again. Not for me. I looked back. Every seat was now occupied. Silent, eyeless figures, staring, not blinking. And at the altar stood the man from the photo. E. Grayson. He opened the black book. A visitor. Do you wish to be remembered? I ran. The front door slammed shut. Locked. The windows showed only darkness. No stars, no moon. On the floor, the wooden panels split apart, forming a circular symbol, the same as on the door. The congregation began chanting. One word, return, return, return. Grayson raised his hands. The ground opened beneath the altar. A pit, black and endless. From it came voices, hundreds, overlapping. We prayed, and nothing came. So we made something else listen. I hurled the book into the pit. The room shook violently. The figures screamed. The thorns on the floor caught fire, burning in a ring of unnatural blue flame. I ran toward the back door, now cracked open. The second I stepped outside, all noise stopped. Just wind. I turned around. The church was gone. Just a field of ash. Epilogue, Vanishing Town. I tried to return to Milltown. There's no such place. Locals in nearby counties say the town disappeared in the 50s after 23 people vanished during a Halloween service. The church was never found again, but some nights truckers say they see it. A wooden building in the fog, glowing faintly red. And if you stop, you'll hear the choir, still singing, still waiting, still remembering. Thank you for listening to tonight's story. If it gave you chills, leave a like and share it with those brave enough to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for the next nightmare. We broadcast every week. As long as you still dare to listen,